hakarongo mai. Anei he pātai, he roti e tā mātou tikanga, ko te awa ko au. Kia ora. Ko te awa ko au ko te awa. I ngā wā o mua, ka hore tēnei mea te rerekētanga o tēnei taonga o te wai. Tuatahi, he aha tā koutou tikanga, marunga te rerekētanga o te wai. And I'm referring to the water. Pere ki te mana whenua, mana moana, mana tūpuna, mana wairua, taonga tuku iho. Te take, kia taia e koutou, te moiho ki enei hakaro. Hei oranga tinana, oranga wairua, oranga hinengaro, oranga whānau hapu. Tuarua, me pēhea tā koutou tautoko, te uru, te tiritia waitangi, ko tahi mano warurau whātekau, I runga I te timatanga tā koutou ture o te kaunihera ārohe o kirikiriroa. Kia whai mana tēnei kaupapa, e pā ana te wai, me ngā taonga katoa o te tāiao I reira. Tua toru, me pēhea tā koutou tautoko I te hakarapa e nei kawanata tapu. Tuatai he hakaputanga rangatiratanga o New Tirini, ko tahi mano, warurau, toru te kaumārima, me te tiriti o waitangi, ko tahi mano, warurau, whātekau. Kei runga te pātū, I mua te tari o te kaunihera ārohe o Kirikiriroa. Tua whā, hena, kei wainganui a koutou, hei kaimahi Māori, I tino matatau, te reo me ona tikanga Māori, me ngā ture o te kaunihera, hei kanohi mo ngā whānau hapu o tērā rohe, ki te taha o te mea, CEO hoki. Nā te mea, moiho mātou, kei roto ngā kaunihera, he iwi liaison, ne? Hei kai haka haere mo koutou. Engari, ko tēnei, hei kai haka haere mo mātou, ngā whānau hapu hoki. Ka nui nei pātai, engari, ma mātou hihia, me haka hoki tā koutou hakautu kia mātou. Mena I roto I te reo tauiwi, pihikiti hoki, e pai ana. I will now change to my presentation in English, which is not a translation of what I just read out. What I'm going to present to you is very similar to what I sent to you in the mail. Apart from the information provided by the Guardian Political Review, 2007, page 9, 2010, page 17, and 2011, page 16, my main reason for objecting to fluoride in water was the knowledge that my 7 siblings lost their teeth at an early age in their teens to 20s. 2 sisters have passed on, and 6 are now in their 70s, and 1 is age 60. I started losing my teeth from the mid-late 20s and had the last 7 removed in 2011. Since responding to this debate against the fluoridation of water, I made inquiries in Whangarei District Council about our water treatment, and they sent me a letter dated 6th of May, noting the hazardous chemicals in the water. Aluminium sulfate at 2 water treatment plants, and caustic soda at 3 water treatment plants, polyelectrolyte at 2 water treatment plants, and chlorine at 3 water treatment plants. So there are 3 water treatment plants with caustic soda and chlorine in them that they put in there. And there are 2 water treatment plants with aluminium sulfate and polyelectrolyte. They did not give clarity as to why those hazardous chemicals are added, nor why a variation between water treatment plants, as that information, I understand, is not available to the public or is restricted information. I don't know why that is. My question to the tribunal is, why fluoridate when evidence proves the harmful effects on the public? For extra precaution in our household here, we drink filtered water. I am also aware of the fact that spring water is available in the north, and there is no treatment whatsoever in spring water that comes off our lands. And in particular, I'm actually talking about whatatiri, which you may have heard about. It's a claim that went before the Waitangi Tribunal. The Waitangi Tribunal number is 2358. And the Poroti Springs, which comes off that what we call the breast, there, as far as I know, there is no treatment on our springs, because we just drink it straight from the springs. There's no treatment at all. I have completed. Do you have any questions?
Right, any questions for Marama? Margaret?
Do I pose to you?
I think she can hear us.
Yep, speak nice and loud and clear and she'll probably be able to hear you.
Kia ora. My question to you is that I'd like your comments about the...
I can't hear her.
Okay.
Okay, that's okay. Margaret, just put your question to me and I will relay it to you, Marama.
That we've heard submissions from the Māori Dentalist group and other members of the community who are pro-fluoridation. I'm interested to know her comments about the effects of non-fluoridation of the water supply on the at-risk groups, namely Māori and Pacific. What does she think what sort of effect will that have on those groups, underprivileged?
Marama, this question comes from Councillor Margaret Forsyth. She says, we've heard from groups, particularly, say, the Māori Dental Association or Māori dental groups who are pro-fluoride, and she's wanting to know, what do you think the effects of having non-fluoridated water would be on Māori and Pacific Islanders in particular?
On Māori and Pacific Islanders, non-fluoridated water?
Yes.
Well, I prefer natural remedies. I don't believe in any form of man-made tampering on any of our resources. I believe that if access to spring water is available, that is the best water to drink. I actually know that is a fact. And I think I don't know what sort of taps you have, or like whether it's copper or what type of metal it is that brings the water to the people, or whether you use plastic pipes to bring the water to the people. But I think when anything metal is used, because the water is so harsh, and only from my only very limited research, I'm not an expert on this, I'm only going by my own experience, that, you know, it's, I'm just an objector of fluoridated water. I really am, because I believe in the alternative way or the natural way.
Thank you very much for your submission.
All right, thank you. Very good. Thank you,
Kia ora.
Marama. Kia ora. And the next speaker is Christine Cave. So, Christine, you've got 10 minutes, including questions. Thanks. Okay, so off you go. Thank you.
Can you manage it? I hope so. Now, let's get this straight from the beginning. Let's get the facts up there right away. I'm going to make this really simple for you. Fluoride is safe at 1 part per million. Not. But I'll get a few smoke and mirrors out. All right, so we can get the facts out there. Let's examine the evidence. Be very quiet over there, Peter. I'll come and examine to see if you've got the balls to make a good decision. Yes, I look like the comedy act, don't I? But I know there's been comedy before me. I heard some of the presentations. They didn't confess they were comedy, but it was a comedy, all the same. Actually, what I want to do is I want to thank the councillors that bothered to turn up. Sincerely. I would rather have a pro-fluoride councillor in this room than a shirker outside of it. Thank you for turning up. Thank you for sitting there and hearing to every boring, banal moment of it. Every repetition. There's nothing new that's come up. I've been sat there. I've been coming for 15 years. You have learnt nothing new that we haven't told you over and over. Nothing. And I sat there and I thought, what am I going to say? And then I'd have a good idea about a subject and I think, then the next 3 speakers would talk about it and I thought, I can't do that now, can I? You know, what's it all about? 15 years. And look how many people are here this time. Guess what? It's not going away. The fluoride will, but eventually. It's either now or can you see that there's a tipping point arrived? Can you see that? There is a movement throughout the world. We don't have the stomach for this anymore, any more poisons. There's a movement. Whether it's good for you or bad for you is just about irrelevant right now. People don't want it. And it's getting voted out all around the fluoridated areas, they're voting it out. And you see, over the 15 years, it's been easy to dismiss me because it's been me and Ziggy and a couple of other people every year and we're just the joke. We know we're your entertainment, we know that. So I didn't want to let you down today. So I'm back, but can you see I'm not alone? I might be the laughable one, the joke, but I'm not alone. And there's some pretty amazing, credible people come here. And I think if you earnestly look at the lineup, could the anti-fluoride people have organised a better lineup for you? Out of respect for you, to show you the quality of the information. Could we have done any better? Well, you'll see, if you don't vote it out, next year will be better, because we'll be back. Right? We're coming back until it's over. you know, I did sit there and I listen, and I hear this all the time. People come up to me, and I heard a few of them, and it's so cringeworthy. The little scientific experiments people perform in their own little family. You know, we're constantly hearing how poor quality the science is. And then we've got people lining up for the Darwin Award here, telling us that my teeth are bad, my children are good, therefore this is valid scientific experiment I performed in my family. Please. Let me tell you about my family. My parents had false teeth, like they all did then. They wanted false teeth. They liked having false teeth. Everybody had false teeth. The best 21st present anybody could have was a pair of false teeth. They told me that. They didn't go to the dentist. They didn't brush their teeth. They wanted false teeth, pearly white, even teeth. Now, so along we came, and then the dental nurse clinics came as well. And we got lots and lots of fillings. Not because we had rotten teeth, but because they were excited. The dental nurses were excited. And they had no other way than to drill. So the tiniest little bit of decay, or even the thought of it, if in doubt, drill it out. You know, we're saying if in doubt, leave it out. If in doubt, drill it out. And we got drilled and drilled and drilled. There was 5 of us. One of my sisters had no fillings. Same family, same water. Why didn't she have any fillings? Because she was screaming her head off whenever she got near the dental nurse. And they couldn't be bothered with her. But we all lay back in that chair like willing victims. And we were proud of our stoicism. And we got drilled and drilled and drilled. How do I know about this? My sister's a dental nurse. I know what they were thinking. So that was my family. That's my little scientific experiment in my family. What's it got to do with tooth decay? You know, what's wrong with a toothbrush and toothpaste? Please. I want to say, though, I really understand your predicament. I truly, truly feel for you. I believed in fluoride too. And I had to change my mind, and it wasn't easy. And I've had to eat my words about a lot of things over the years, and I've had to learn to say, sorry. And it's the hardest word in the world, I know it. Does anyone know about phlebotomy? I shouldn't mention that word without doing the phlebotomy. It's where they take blood. I want you to know, I think it's quite ironic, we've got the diabetes people next door. When they sample blood to test blood sugar, the vial in which they put it in has got fluoride in it. And the purpose of that fluoride is to inhibit the uptake of the glucose into the blood cells before they have time to test it. It makes you think, doesn't it? I get a lot of overseas visitors. From Europe. They're not fluoridated. Armin, Zhang, Kevin, can't remember, read now, Larissa, Daniel. I mean, lots of them, okay? There's copies of all their passports. They're all amazed when I talk about fluoride in the water. They all got good teeth. And all your friends and family got good teeth. Everyone they know has got good teeth. But they don't have fluoride in the water. Isn't that amazing? It's incredible. What are you afraid of? It's only a very small part of the world that actually does it. What are you actually afraid of? That some little kid will get a hole in their tooth next week and you'll feel responsible? Take that $50,000 that you're pouring down the drain and give it to the DHB and tell them to spend it on their little programs that are working. 45 million litres of water a day, fluoridated, for less than 150,000 men, women, children and babies. If they all drank 2 litres of water a day, which I highly doubt, that's 300,000 litres. Now, anyone good at maths? 44,700,000 litres of fluoridated water going to waste. Don't waste it. If you want to give fluoride to people who need it, give it to them direct. Take that $50,000. I think you can take a bit more. I don't mind.
Thank you, Christine, for that presentation. All right, the next presenter is Brett Murphy. All right, Brett, you've got 10 minutes including question time. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship the Mayor. Thank you, City Councillors, for the opportunity to speak to you this day as an independent. But I'd like to open with a karakia, if that's okay. Heavenly Father, Yahweh, I just thank you for the opportunity to speak to this issue today. Thank you for your Son, Yeshua, that died on a cross for us and rose on the third day. Thank you for your Ruach Kadesh, the Holy Spirit. May He guide us through this process. Thank you for this time. I bless you in Yeshua's name. Amen. I'm a simple guy. I'd just like to ask the question. I understand there's around about 85 submissions against this, so 85% of the submissions would seem overwhelming in a democracy, but given central government's track record, that's not always the case when we think about issues like parental correction or the anti-smacking bill or perhaps the Marriage Equality Act. Sometimes, it appears that we don't actually have democracy. Also sort of think about why is it that when I sort of brush my teeth, I'm told to spit out toothpaste, but I get fluoride in my water and it goes into my system. So that seems to be a little bit of an oxymoron. Why is it when Tongariro erupts, we're warning farmers, keep your cattle away from the water, lest they drink the fluoride from this eruption, yet it's poured into our water system? So these are some questions that I sort of ponder when we're looking at this debate, because I think we've had fluoride in this water now in Hamilton for at least 50 years. There is a worldwide trend that is going against this circumstance, and just last week in Portland, Oregon, United States, 60% of people rejected this. Fluoride will not be included in the water. And I understand around 2/3 of our councils in New Zealand don't have this. So we're very much within the minority. Having addressed those some simple things, just consideration to think about, I'll get into my speech. I'm here today because I'm angry that the dental and district health boards love to paint anti-fluoride campaigners as uninformed, uneducated, conspiracy theorists who have no scientific evidence or medical opinion behind them to back up their claims. We may not have letters after our names, but believe me, we read papers written by those who do, and we are intelligent, well-researched people who believe that our children and ourselves deserve better than the indiscriminate, unmonitored mass medication of what should be our pure drinking water. Dentists love to say that fluoride is good for us. They are referring to naturally occurring fluoride. The fluoride added to the public water supplies in New Zealand is not organic fluoride at all. Hydrofluoric acid, HFA, is the predominant fluoridation agent used in New Zealand. Quoting Graham Colquhoun, Product Manager, Water Chemicals, Orisia Chemnet, Auckland. Now please keep that in mind when I read you this next quote. Hydrofluoric acid is derived from toxic gases produced in the manufacture of phosphoric acid and phosphorate fertilizers. It contains lead, mercury, arsenic, high concentrations of radiochlorides. It is also the chemical agent most used for water fluoridation. George Classer. I would caution you against taking advice from dentists whose specialisation is teeth. Dentists have no qualifications to talk about the effects of fluoride on the human nervous system, the blood supply, behavioural disorders, or other psychological effects. Dentists are really only qualified to talk about what's happening with your teeth, not drugs or chemicals that you ingest and that have a symptomatic effect, you're making a decision for the health of Hamilton. Are you qualified? Doctors and dentists are quick to say there is no evidence of harm in the years fluoride has been in the water in any given location. But have they done any testing? No, not even one study to my knowledge has been done here in Hamilton on systematic health and fluoride, and new science against fluoride is quickly dismissed. Fluoridating countries, including New Zealand, are simply not doing non-industry funded tests. They're not doing independent investigation to see if there's a relationship between fluoridation and lower IQ, fluoridation and arthritis, fluoridation and hypothyroidism. They would like to imply that because they don't see anything, there's nothing wrong. But if they were not looking, they won't find. You often hear the promoters say things like, "We've been doing this for 60 years. If there was any problem, we'd know about it by now." But they wouldn't unless they were doing the studies. And they're using the absence of study as if it was the same as absence of harm, which is absolutely ridiculous and utterly irresponsible. It's almost as if the teeth have become the most important tissue, the most important part of our body. Instead of our brains, instead of our thyroid glands, instead of our pineal glands, instead of our kidneys, and so on and so on. Fluoride consumption has been linked to a great number of neurological disorders, migraine headaches, clinical depression, osteoporosis and childhood learning difficulties, and behavioural problems, dementia and Alzheimer's. And there have been more than 24 studies in the last 2 decades alone that show that there is a very strong link between these diseases and the long-term consumption of fluoride in the public water supply. So I would like to know why it seems ridiculous to the defensive dentists that the high occurrence of these conditions in our society might be connected, and all without local or national testing to back up their protests of safety. Have the individual members of the population been individually assessed for their need for such a drug? Have medication doses and drug interactions been considered? Why are there absolutely no controls and measures of testing in our population? If you're going to put drugs in our water, you better track it, test each person based on consumption rates, and safely manage your patients. Anything less is medical misadventure. And let's remember, you are a local district authority, not medical professors or a health board. You should not have patients, you have ratepayers. But as we are unwillingly your patients due to attention of fluoride in our drinking water, I'd like to know, where are our safety measures? Have you tested me to see how much I drink and therefore whether I am abiding an overdose of the toxic artificial element? No. What about my children? Here's an example for you which should bring this home. Glass and toothpaste demonstration. What if my kids brush their teeth, then drink 6 glasses of water? Do I call a poison centre, or should I call you, the administrator of my children's drug? A bottle-fed baby in a fluoridated community based on 1 part per million is getting 250 times higher dose of fluoride than a breastfed baby, and that is extremely disturbing. NZ Herald article recently revealed, even after decades of fluoridation, a new government report is showing severe tooth decay in fluoridated areas. The same is happening in the birthplace of fluoridization, the United States. The 2009 NZ Oral Health Survey shows tooth decay increasing in fluoridated areas, but decreasing in unfluoridated areas. The Ministry admits it cannot explain this. The South Wairarapa DHB recently announced that more children in fluoridated areas require multiple tooth extractions under general anaesthetic than those in unfluoridated areas, who also have less tooth decay. Indeed, advocates of fluoridated water insist that the chemical active and good for teeth, but actually science routinely shows otherwise, including a new study published in the Journal of the American Dental Association confirming fluoride as a toxic substance that actually destroys teeth, particularly those of developing young children and babies. In fact, the United States government has finally acknowledged the harmful effects that fluoride has on the body and recommends that water fluoridation levels be decreased nationwide. Here's the bottom line for you. This is not council, community board, core business. Why are you spending ratepayers' money on medicating the town? Is this what you are supposed to do? Is this your core business? If it is, why not widen the scope of providing all health care? Why not open free medical clinics, paid for by the rates? If this sounds silly, consider this. If fluoride is somehow effective at strengthening teeth, an alternative to dosing our water should be provided free fluoride tablets for those who choose them. And if dispensing pills from the Hamilton City Council reception sounds a ridiculous notion, as you are not a pharmacy, then why is the original plan and action of dosing our very drinking water seem as valid? If we are going to have this medication forced upon us by adding it to our drinking water, please at least spend the extra money needed to ensure that proper medical supervision is given. This is the right we should have if we are to be medicated by a body whose expertise lies entirely outside of this field. If I want fluoride for myself or my family, I should be able to choose. And you are contravening many human rights by removing that choice. Think about motivations of both parties, for and against here. 2 parts. May I finish? It's 2 small parts. I had 1, 2 small.
No, your time's up. Sorry, we're being really strict on time, Brett. I'm sorry, because we just have to make sure that everyone gets their fairly allotted time.
Right.
But we've got your written paper, and if you want to leave a copy of what you've read out with Jacob, and then he will make sure that councillors get and receive that paper. So we don't have any time for questions either because of the full 10 minutes. No. Okay. Hey, thank you very much for your presentation and
Thank you very much
for making your points.
Cheers.
All right. The next speaker is Suzanne McNair. Okay, thanks, Suzanne.
Well, firstly, I'd like to start by saying thank you for recognising the need for a tribunal on this issue. And as the topic of the day is all about teeth, I'd just like to say that I did an extra special job cleaning my teeth this morning. But of course, yes, but of course I used non-fluoridated toothpaste. As a resident of Hamilton, I object to hydrofluorosilicic acid, non-food grade fluoride, being added to the town's water supply. My perspective is based on human rights issues. I don't believe the council has the right, legal or otherwise, to mass medicate. I believe it is this act which contravenes my right to self-determination and the basic human right for all to have access to good quality water. As the Hamilton City Council adds HFA to the water, which is a byproduct of the phosphate fertiliser industry, I believe the real issue at hand is not fluoride being added to the water, but HFA. HFA does not just contain artificial fluoride, it also contains arsenic, lead, cadmium and mercury, etc. Even if you don't believe the science that fluoride is bad for you, there is no disputing the fact that these are poisons, which are all known worldwide to be highly toxic and for which no safe level exists. Those that are pro-fluoride are exactly that, pro-fluoride. It does not necessarily mean they are pro-HFA. Were it made readily available, the Molotov cocktail toxic list of ingredients, I'm sure many would change their minds and agree it is not right for the majority to ingest known poisons against their will for the sake of the minority. The assumed health benefits of HFA do not outweigh impairment of individual autonomy by mass medicating. The greater good is a vote to support self-determination by permanently removing HFA. The associated health risks of a minority socio-economic group can be solved by other means. I'm not prepared to ingest known poisons long-term which adversely affect my overall health. Oh God, I didn't think I'd do this. For most of my life, I have suffered from chronic fatigue. This could be attributed to HFA in the water affecting my thyroid. This makes me very angry, as I feel a part of my life has been taken from me. Self-determination is of extreme importance to both myself and many, many other Hamiltonians that I've spoken to. Over and over, people say that they feel their own council has taken away their right to self-determination, or words to that effect, and how much this frustrates them. especially when elsewhere in New Zealand and the world, councils are voting to either keep it out or remove it from the water. Even those that are pro-fluoride concede on this issue. Even they can see that basic human rights have been contravened. And as an analogy, and a bit of light relief, I was made to eat Brussels sprouts as a child. As a child, I didn't like them, and as an adult, I still do not like them. As a child, your right to self-determination is governed somewhat by your parents. My parents believed they were supplying my growing body with valuable nutrients. Now that I'm an adult, my parents exercise their right to eat Brussels sprouts, and I exercise mine by not. I'm able to choose for myself a suitable replacement, nutrient-wise, in place of the dreaded Brussels sprout. This is also the case with HFA. There are alternatives. Those that want to use fluoride can apply it topically through using toothpaste, etc. They can choose to consult with a healthcare professional like a doctor, dentist, herbalist, or homeopath. They could give up smoking or change their diet, namely intake less sugar in their diet. Probiotics can be taken to help lessen oral bacteria. Children and adults can be educated on how to brush their teeth, oral health care and the benefits of a healthy diet. Subsidies can be provided for low socioeconomic groups for toothpaste and or toothbrushes. People can exercise their right to freedom of choice as deemed by them and use preventative measures within their control. Mass medicating does not allow anyone, either pro or against, the right to freedom of choice. In the absence of alternatives to HFA, such as fluoride toothpaste, etc., the assumed health benefits might outweigh impairment of individual autonomy. But these alternatives are cheap and readily available and do not impinge on the majority's rights to self-determination. In the Council's own words, taken from the HCC website, if fluoridation of the water supply is beneficial, oral health may be at risk because of the risks of bacterial harms caused through diet. A decrease in oral health could lead to increased demand for secondary oral health services. The key word here is diet. If, as the Council states, diet is the cause, then diet must also be the cure. Given a diet high in sugar and processed foods, how will any amount of fluoride in the water actually help? Research proves that over-the-counter probiotics have been shown to have a specific effect on dental caries causing bacteria. And there are many other alternatives to help oral health other than adding fluoride to the water. These would not just benefit oral health, but there would also be a reduction in all manner of other health-related problems. This in turn would help alleviate strain on oral health services and many other health services as well. And when you factor in a supposed decrease in oral health and an increase in the strain on oral health services, are you adding into the mix the increase in HFA poisoning-related health issues and the subsequent increased strain on health services as a result? Citing another quote from the HCC website, if fluoridation of the water supply is beneficial, communities who are more at risk or who require fluoride more than others will no longer receive this benefit if it was removed. I agree with you, this is an issue. I assume you're referring to low socioeconomic groups who do tend to have a higher incidence of oral health problems. This would be largely due to bad oral hygiene, an unhealthy diet, high in sugar, smoking, alcohol, drug use, social problems, and neglect. The Council has to consider the greater good and not contravene the inherent rights of the majority trying to solve a minority group's problem. Removing HFA from the water does not mean they will no longer be receiving the benefit of fluoride, as there are many other alternatives and solutions available, some of which I have outlined earlier. Not all of them are easy solutions, but it is a complex problem. And I am not prepared to ingest known poisons to help improve the dental health of others who could be helped by other means. Adding HFA to the water supply is disadvantaging those in both the low and mid socioeconomic groups who are against HFA yet cannot afford prohibitively expensive water filter systems, effectively removing their right to freedom of choice in health, etc. Subsidising water filters would be a lot more expensive for the Council than subsidising toothpaste and toothbrushes. And over the 47 years the Council has been adding fluoride and or HFA to the water, it has cost ratepayers around 1.8 million but probably more as well. I do not consider that a cost-effective measure. I believe the right to quality of life is just as relevant to this issue as is the right to self-determination. In order to try and facilitate dental health equity, the Council is also denying many the right to quality of life. Due to its toxic ingredients, HFA causes health problems and hence impacts on quality of life. So I implore you, please remove HFA permanently from our water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne, for that presentation. I'll just check if there's any questions for you. Any questions, councillors? No, there are no questions. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, our next speaker is Robin Jackson. Is Robin Jackson here? Hello, Robin, how are you? Welcome along, Robin. So you have 10 minutes, including time for questions. Thanks.
Thank you. It is good afternoon. It's not quite, is it? Good morning, everyone. I, like Christine, have been around a long time on this issue. I go back 30 years, which is even a bit further than Christine. But I too would like to say thank you to all the councillors for coming and being on this tribunal and listening to what we have to say. So thank you for that. Sorry, I'll just change my glasses over. I'm a naturopath. I'm actually working part-time as a naturopath, and I do volunteer work in another capacity in the Norton Crawshaw area of Hamilton. I mention both of those because they're both relevant to what I'm trying to share here today. Now, naturopaths, many of you probably already know this, try to find the underlying cause of disease. And often these causes can be because of nutrient deficiencies, but also because of toxins coming into the body that the body can't deal with. Currently, I'm moving into an area of nutrigenomics, which is done through genetic testing to help people with really challenging health problems that nobody else has seemed to be able to help. I do this through a program which is in the States, the CH3 Nutrigenomics and Holistic Heal, which is directed by Dr. Amy Yasko, a US naturopath and author of Autism Pathways to Recovery. This is a very revealing test as it shows just how incredibly different we are in our genetic makeup, and in that case how different we can respond to environmental toxins and different types of foods and nutrients. Although her testing and advice can be used for other really challenging health problems such as neurodegenerative diseases, chronic fatigue, all of these things that often people limp along with for years and years in their life and never really resolve, she works mainly with children who are on the autism spectrum. Dr. Yasko has helped families whose children have been diagnosed with this disorder move toward better health, and in some cases parents report back their children are now classed as normal. In fact, often they're even better than normal. They do exceedingly well in their classes. And this is done by fine-tuning their foods and other nutrients and removing from toxins from their lives as much as possible. This includes removing added fluoride from their drinking waters and no topical fluoride treatments from the dentist, as these children are often highly reactive to this or any type of toxin. Now, I want to share this with you as I'm aware there's an increase in children developing autism disorders in New Zealand. And I read on a Stuff article which was written, I think, on the 1st of the 8th, 2012, and it reads, "The increasing number of autism diagnoses in New Zealand is prompting many affected families to establish grassroots support groups. Figures from Autism New Zealand reveal 1 person in every 100 has an autism spectrum disorder, which equates to an estimated 40,000 people nationwide." And that's the end of the quotes from that article. I'm sure many of these people will be living in our area, and many could, like the American children, be being possibly affected by the addition of hydrofluoric acid into our water supply. I'd like you to take that into consideration when you're making your decision. That's actually that's a growing number of children right across our nation who are now classed in this spectrum. And it is actually going to become a huge problem to New Zealand. My question is, of course, are they being monitored? Are any of those being tested for fluoride toxicity? I haven't read anywhere that they are. Now, the other thing I'd like to move on to is the concentration and dose of fluoride. I've heard it said by those who are pro-fluoridation that there's no evidence that 1 part per million added to water is harmful, which I think, after hearing about those on the autism spectrum, is very debatable. But the point I'd like to make here is there's a big difference between concentration and dose. What you actually put in the water is 1 part per million, but what somebody at the other end gets can be quite different from that. If you're diabetic, for instance, you'll often drink a lot more fluid. If you're exercising a lot and sweating a lot, you'll be drinking more. In my late husband Bruce Collins' book, Fluoridation in New Zealand, excuse me, which was a first in New Zealand on this topic, was written back in the 1980s. And it actually gives excellent background information as to where and who the first proposals to fluoridate water came from and how it became one of the most controversial health measures in our history. He says that a person drinking several cups of strong tea, which is high in fluoride naturally and has been made with fluoridated water, can easily be getting the amount that the World Health Organization said may cause skeletal fluorosis over a period of time. Perhaps our tea needs to have some labels on it too. Caution, this contains fluoride, which may be dangerous if taken in excess amounts. The mind boggles really, doesn't it? I've also heard anxiety expressed as to what will happen to those children's teeth who live in low socioeconomic areas of our city. And as I said, I do work with people, with children and families in the Norton Crawshaw area, so I know these families. And I want to say too, a lot of them are doing very well with their children, with their diets and making changes, but there are some big changes I think that need to be made. In the 1930s, I know this has been heard before at these meetings, but I want to emphasise it again because the American dentist and nutritionist Dr. Weston Price, he travelled the world studying the dental health of Indigenous peoples and comparing them to their westernised counterparts. Wherever he went, he found that native people living on traditional diets had very low rates of dental decay, while people with westernised diets had high rates of decay. In New Zealand, he found that isolated Maori communities living traditional lifestyles and eating traditional foods had beautiful straight teeth, with the lowest incidence of dental decay in the world. Māori who had adopted the Western lifestyle had high rates of dental decay and deformity and underdevelopment of facial bones. So as Christine said, you can give that money to the health department, but perhaps it would be better invested into these areas where they were encouraged more to eat their traditional food instead of looking at our health department food triangle, which is actually almost the upside down, the wrong way around for them. That may be a good way of helping them. Thank you. Okay. I see the results of poor nutrition and malnutrition in my work. The reality is it's not easy to get this right, especially if you're on a low income, and also sometimes if you've got more weaker genes, they're not working as well as other people. It isn't easy to always get our diets exactly right. But it has been known since the 1950s that poor nutrition enhances the toxicity of fluoride. Nutrient deficiencies have been specifically linked to increased susceptibility to fluoride-induced tooth damage, dental fluorosis, bone damage, osteomalacia, neurotoxicity, reduced intelligence and mutagenicity. The nutrients of primary importance appear to be calcium, vitamin C and iodine, while magnesium, vitamin D and protein appear to be important as well. I'd like to just close now by reading something from Bruce's book. I hope I'll have time to get through it. And it actually shows the beginning of fluoridation in New Zealand and also what the health department was advocating back then for good, strong teeth. So the Hastings Experiment was started in February 1953. Fluoridation had already been fully endorsed in America by that date, and its benefits and alleged successes were well advertised. The plan was to have nearby Napier as a control city, and the whole experiment was conducted in accord with the USS Public Health Service and the American Dental Association. As it turned out, the Napier comparison had to be dropped, as the city's figures started showing better than Hastings. Some had attributed this to the particularly high mineral content in Napier's water, and a naturally high fluoride content. But surely the department would have tested Napier's water for fluoride content before beginning the experiment, he says, and I think it's a really good point. Others pointed to the fact that throughout New Zealand at that time there was an increased awareness and emphasis on good oral hygiene, the results of the health department's publicity. Their publication read, "Give us good teeth, good diet, rich in calcium, phosphorus and vitamin D, reduction of sugary and refined foods, especially between meals, regular brushing of teeth and dental examinations." However, these fundamentals, still so valid today, have never been widely adopted by the population, so the Department of Health strategy fell towards the American idea of fluoridation. I really think that after all the evidence that has come out through doctors, through professional people here against fluoridation, that you have no fear of taking it out of the water. There are other ways of helping these people get good teeth health. The health department knew it back then. They know it now, and I do believe this is the way to go. Thank you.
Well, we don't have any time for questions, Robin, but thank you very much for your presentation. The next speaker is Russell Knapp. Have I got that right? Russell, hello. How are you? So, Russell, you've got 10 minutes, including time for questions. Thank you.
Okay. It's actually quite intimidating walking up here when you're not used to doing this sort of thing. So, I've got a cold, but I'm sure you will be quite relieved to hear that I'm not going to give a long, complex presentation. I'm not going to go into the science of fluoride, because at the end of the day, I'm not a scientist, and I guess not many of you are either. What I'd like to present is what I believe is common sense. I listened to a councillor speak at a public meeting a few months ago. He answered, when questioned on his stance on fluoride, that he would go with the science. So which science? The pro or the anti? Someone wise once said that we filter all information through our own particular prejudices. In other words, we tend to believe what fits in with our already preconceived ideas. This, in my opinion, is patently wrong when deciding on issues that affect the personal freedom and potential health on the citizens of the city. Central government has set a precedent by rejecting a bill that would have seen mass medication of the general population by adding folic acid to bread for the prevention of spinal bifida. The consequences of being born with such a crippling condition is monumental when compared to bad teeth, yet it was rejected by our elected politicians because it went against citizens' rights and freedom of choice. In the light of this, I think it is both undemocratic and foolish to mass medicate to prevent tooth decay. One of the very few advantages of old age is experience. I remember being told that DDT was okay. We doused our country in it until we realised the toxin was showing up in breast milk. I was told thalidomide was okay. I was told that dioxin, the main ingredient in Agent Orange, was okay, and that the cluster of deformed babies around the manufacturing plant was a coincidence. The same coincidence was responsible for thousands of deformed babies in Cambodia and Vietnam, and after years of scientific denial, it ultimately led to the compensation of our own soldiers. I was told asbestos was okay, and we lined our schools and hospitals with it. I was told that the chemicals used to tannalise timber were okay. Process workers soaked in it and have suffered terribly for years as a result. The list of substances that we were told were okay by scientists is infinite. My point is, the science isn't irrefutable. And whilst there are alternatives available to those who are happy for their children to ingest fluoride, there should be no compulsion for the populace to be compelled to accept this substance in their drinking water. The real question here should be not whether fluoride is good or bad, but whether you, as a group, have the right to impose your beliefs on every citizen in Hamilton. It is fundamentally about citizens' human rights and civic rights. Central government has rejected mass medication in favour of personal freedom to choose. I really hope that this council is brave enough and sensible enough to follow suit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle. Any questions for Rochelle?
Any questions?
No questions. Thank you
Fine.
very much for coming up and doing that. Now our next speaker is Dr. Rachel Wood. Hi there, 10 minutes including questions, thanks.
Thank you. Good morning everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm not going to be technical either, although I have got a science background. I've also got a psychology background too, and I want to go back to Hastings and Napier in 1953. Because when the experiment was run, if experiment it was, and there was no proof that in fact Hastings had better dental caries result, why on earth, I agree, was it not dropped at the time? The dental profession since that time has continued to promote fluoridation, and certainly there's evidence that topical application of fluoride improves the actual enamel of a teeth, the strength of the teeth. The problem with giving fluoride to children, especially in toothpaste, is that they tend to swallow it. It's not a good idea to swallow fluoride, as you've already probably been told. The problem we have is that dental professionals now, if you start talking to them about fluoride, say things like, would you like to see children with teeth that look like this? And they give you the most horrendous pictures of children with dreadful teeth. And would you like your children to do this, and would you like your children to do that? And they've provided a lot of evidence, but very little countering the actual effects or not effects of fluoridation. So they're appealing to our emotions. Now, why do they do that? The problem for anybody, and I've experienced this myself, so I'm talking from experiences, when you really, really believe something and the evidence is against it, then your tendency is to say the evidence must be wrong. As a psychologist, I can tell you that it has a name. It's called cognitive dissonance. And when you suffer from cognitive dissonance, trust me, it's really hard to get out of it because you start to hang yourself on with the thing. I think this is what has occurred over time, and people who've come into the dental profession and other people observing from outside have got caught up in the same thing. So what we now need to do is to have a look at it and say, right, we didn't know what we know now. We didn't have children's teeth improving because we got fluoridated toothpaste. We know more about it. We've got adverts on TV. We didn't know any of this. We're now down at 2013. Maybe now we can have a look and say, look, because we didn't know then, we were not stupid. What we know now suggests to us that maybe we need to look at it again. So I'm saying to Hamilton City Council that you've now got plenty of stuff which suggests to you that you can have a re-look. And if in fact you stop fluoridating Hamilton water, it doesn't mean that you were wrong before. It means that now you have a reason for looking at it again. So that all the evidence that you will have heard about why fluoride is not good to have it as a mass modification can now be said, now look, we know this now. So we can review our decision. And in fact, maybe we can say, right, we're going to take the fluoride out of the water, but what we're going to do is we're going to actively campaign now and say, this is what you really need to do for your teeth. And we know that generally speaking, problems with teeth occur in lower socioeconomic groups. Why is that? Because they have no money. In fact, my husband's just been to the dentist and we've now got no money. But he's had a crown. So we can help. You can have campaigns. There's lots of things that you can do with the money that you might be spending on fluoride that would get to the coalface, and you'd get a lot of support. You get a lot of support, I suspect, from a lot of people in this room to continue to look at teeth. Because if we can hang on to our teeth, then the results are incredible for old age, as I know. That's me. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Just see if there's a question, Councillor Boss.
What's the disorder called when you've got one group saying to another group, you don't do enough research. You have not done the research. You don't do enough of it. And then the group itself is saying, but we've got all the evidence. So I find it quite difficult to listen to the experts, and they're supposed to be the experts, who don't do research, and another group who does research, who's told by the experts they don't really know what they're doing. So I wonder what that's called.
Arguing, really, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem it's always a problem if you've got one side, because people are so wedded to a particular idea, and the anti-fluoride group are just as bad. Yeah. You will go out and hunt, bad's perhaps the wrong word, you will go out and hunt the evidence that you want. The only thing that I can suggest you do is you get somebody in, like my husband, not me, like my husband, who does this, who analyses that kind of stuff and says to you, this is what this is actually saying, and this is what this is actually saying. Because one of the things that happens with the fluoride group is you tend to get, for example, you'll get a graph that goes up, they'll stop doing it after 18. And the reason why they stop doing it after 18 is there's no noticeable difference. There's a whole lot of things like that. You can doctor your graphs. So the only thing I can suggest to you is you ask them for pieces of paper, and you sit down with somebody else, and you don't have to be a scientist to do this, and you say, right, what is the graph along, it's like going back to school, is this all right? Like, you look at the graph along the bottom and see what it's actually telling you to do, make sure you understand it, see what it says up the side, so when you get a point in the middle, what is it actually saying, and what is the scale that you're using? If they use what's called a logarithmic scale, it doesn't go up in it doesn't go up in a line. So if you've got a nice line, what does that actually mean? Because if it's a logarithmic scale, it means something very different. Is that helpful? I mean, get alongside somebody who will just talk to you who isn't particularly wedded to the issue. Yeah, I just think we've got a good chance of stopping here now. Yeah.
Right, any other questions? Yes, Councillor Bell.
Thank you for your presentation. Council asked the Prime Minister's Chief Science Advisor if he would do a review of the research findings to inform our deliberation and decision. He declined to do so. Do you have any thoughts on the reasons that he declined?
Yeah, because this is psychology again, isn't it? Would you take on that? I mean, he's going to upset somebody. He might have colleagues who are particularly set. I mean, if you put your career on the line for this, you're in all sorts of strife, aren't you? Because you start to feel extremely stupid. It's trying to say, look, we've got this evidence now, and we've also got a lot of evidence brought in by the anti-fluoride campaigners. By the anti-fluoride campaigners. So it seems to me that he would avoid that. You know, like a dose of the flu, really. I mean, I would, because he's in a very different position to somebody like me, who has no particular axe to grind, and I think we just could have a look at it all. I mean, I have had a look at it all, so I've seen it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be up here. And I think it's definitely something that's difficult to judge because everybody produces their evidence in a different way. You actually had a person here talking. Recently, last year, I can't remember who it was now, came. I didn't come, my husband came. You had somebody
about Paul Connaught, that came? Or?
Yes, Paul, that's right. Now, he had some fantastic evidence. I almost think he probably did overkill, so everybody got to the stage. And I didn't hear any counter-arguments to his evidence. So people don't even go there. What they do is they say, but do you really want to have this going on? Because the idea is, the implication is if you take fluoride out, all these dreadful things are going to happen. And to be quite blunt, if you've ever been down to the dental nurse, those dreadful things are going on right now anyway. So we're not stopping it with fluoridation, to be blunt. We're not. There's only one solution to it. Well, two, actually, diet and cleaning your teeth. Yeah, so it's a tricky one. I have great sympathy with you, actually.
Okay, any other questions, councillors? No. All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Rachel, for that. So we're now in the luncheon break, councillors, and we'll be adjourned until 1:15. Thank you.